Hi, and welcome to SEO Hangouts with Josh Bachynski, the mad dog of SEO. That's right, I'm back. Just when you thought it was safe to come back on the interwebs, I've returned. Today I'd like to share with you some very interesting things that are going on with Google. They've leaked quite a lot lately that I thought, well, it's about time I have myself another SEO Hangout where I can just tell you folks what the good folks at Google are doing. The good folks at Google, and all the different stuff that's going on. Because actually, it's mind blowing what's going on. And you know, SEO has basically changed radically from 2011 every year, and this year, 2015, moving into 2016. I know it's only March, but quite frankly, boom, it's completely shattered and changed again. So buckle up, and get ready, because here we go. Okay, so the first one is this: that a few months ago. And I'm going to do some catch up as well. So a few months ago, Google had a hangout with a few other Googlers, a fellow by the name of Eric, a nice looking Asian fellow, and some other young lady whose name I did not catch. And I can find the exact date for you if you want references from what I'm about to say. And John Mueller, it's kind of like one of those training videos where John Mueller doesn't talk much and he asks them what they think and they kind of say what they think, and they're in the webmaster. They're either in the manual team or the webmaster trends analysts, one or the other. I can't remember which one. And basically, Eric was talking about what you don't have to worry about when you're doing SEO and kind of giving their normal spiel. But he did let a few interesting things drop that John Mueller's face was terrified for a second. So, I mean, that's how I interpret that. Hey, maybe there's something to that, you know. And also other evidence that I've looked at. He did mention that you don't have to worry about links so much, using multiple signals. They've said that many times. But he also said you don't have to worry about your clicks you're getting from social. And John Mueller's face was terrified for a second, and he kind of flubbed over his words and kept going. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but there are lots of people who are looking at the clicks that things are getting. For example, your backlinks. You know, 4 years ago when Panda came out, I wrote down a huge list of all the things Google could track. And it's entirely possible they can track clicks on links through multiple methods. They can just aggregate what people in Chrome are doing. They own the browser. They can do that. And there's some compelling evidence to suggest that they are, because Google admitted to me they are. And some other ex-Googlers have said, yeah, well, they definitely could do that. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And so when ex-Googlers are saying that, and they don't want to break their NDA, of course, and Google and actual Google employees are telling me in private meetings that this is how it works, well, I'll pay attention. So they could be tracking clicks in Chrome. They also, John Limbacher has mentioned, and other people have mentioned that what's with this Safe Browse thing? The Safe Browse thing, I don't know if you know, Safe Browse is a factor in Safari, Firefox, and Chrome. I think it used to be an IE, but IE is dropping out of that now, apparently, very interestingly, where basically it's trying to keep you from going to malware, but they have to track what you click on every single time in order to tell you if you're going to a malware URL. They have to compare programmatically very quickly. Clicked on URL, is it in the malware database? If it is, throw up error. If not, let it go. Right? So they have to track on everything you're clicking, right? And so this is a great way, and other black hats have mentioned to me that they think that this is how some of their tier 1 properties, if you're into such a thing, how their tier 1 properties are getting clicks, and those links are not being devalued. Whereas it would be a great way for Google to tell the difference between negative SEO as well. Because someone can point a bunch of links at you, but they might not go so far as to make those links clickable and drive traffic through them. And if they did, Google would probably think that they're legitimate links, and they'd probably help you if that was the case. So these are just theories. Again, these are hypotheses. But, you know, there's some evidence that's starting to build up that, you know, you might want to start considering these kind of things. But back to what Eric said specifically was that you don't have to worry about your clicks from social. You know, people have been trying to see how these... It seems like when you get a lot of social viral stuff going on, your rankings go up, but then people try to replicate it through a black hat way usually, or even a white hat way, where they try and get a really, you know, drive social signals and get a bunch of retweets and get a bunch of shares. It doesn't really seem to help. Sometimes it does in the sense that all no-follow links help to some degree, especially if the semantic latent index is correct. If all of your tweets, you got a million retweets that said, this is the best red apple site ever, and then a bit.ly link, and then it pointed to your Red Apple site. Well, it's training Google that, well, you're all about red apples because every time a link to you appears, the red apple semantic is all over that, right? So if you weren't ranking for red apples before, you could rank higher, even though those links are no follow. That's how typically people think that works, and I tend to agree. Also, people are wondering, well, bit.ly does have their own search engine. By the way, in case you didn't know, they put it out a couple of years ago, where they track the number of times the 301 is clicked, right? And they're using that as a ranking factor. If 1,000 people click a link compared to no one clicked links of other stuff on the same topic, well, then that must be pretty good. They float at the top. It's entirely possible, and some people have speculated, and I've speculated before as well, that it's entirely possible Google's tracking that as well, the clicks through 301 aggregators, including their own Goo.gl. So anyway, just interesting food for thought. No, nothing conclusive there to report. It would be difficult to test, and I have to do some serious testing, and who has the time for that? But it's interesting just to keep it in mind, whether you're doing white hat or black hat stuff. Okay, now, another interesting thing came up. Let me just go to my list here. Another interesting thing came up. First off, back in February 27th, John Mueller mentioned, he's a Google employee, by the way, if you didn't know. He has these regular Hangouts. And that's where I get some of this information. And other places I get information from other sources. But anyway, John Mueller said, by the way, if you have a flash video on your page, and that's kind of the only thing on your page or a main thing on your page, Google might get confused and think that's a video page and rank you as a video page and not as an information page or a no page or a do page. So remember, after Hummingbird, Google has a very sharp and detailed and fairly darn accurate knowledge of what a product page is versus a sales page versus an information page versus an article versus a blog post versus an RSS syndicated blog post versus duplicated spammy content, style content versus a video page, right? Or an events page or a calendar. And so if you're trying to rank for no-do queries and you have a video on it, as some people in the affiliate spaces try and do, and sales spaces try and do. I've seen chiropractors do it. I've seen lawyers do it. They have a video on there. Moving company recently, a client of mine had that. It might not work best for you because Google might, at the very least, be getting confused as to what this page is about or what users are supposed to be doing there. Remember, as Miley said over a year ago, the last SMX West in 2014, it's 15 now, yeah, right, 2014, that task completion is the primary priority for Google. John Mueller recently just had a hangout where he went through in detail how to make a persona, what these personas are trying to do, and so what their micro tasks are and what their ultimate macro task is. They want information, they click on the page till they find it, they read it, they leave. That's that persona's life cycle on your site, right? Versus a buyer. They're lower in the sales funnel. They go back to your site, probably. You should have cookies saying, welcome back, here's 10% off, we're sorry you left. Incentivizing them to buy, right? Retargeting works really, really well, statistically speaking. In that sense of the word, it's very easy to do, just make a cookie. Or at least welcome them back and they feel warm and fuzzy and maybe more in the buying mood. They go back to that page, they read about it one more time, yeah, okay, they click buy, right? That's the task completion for them. Google's getting to the point where they can read this. Google is not in the business of helping us in any way, shape, or form. They don't give two shits about us, let me tell you. So if they're going to spend time and money to make a PowerPoint presentation, to make a presentation in a hangout, why are they going to bother telling us if it doesn't matter to them? It does matter to them. They can see it for ranking. I'm counting on both hands. It's getting crazy. I'll stick to one hand. It does matter to them. They can detect it. They do use it for ranking. They are checking your task completion. So designers, web designers, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to get better. It's not just about having a pretty page anymore. You're going to have to do this thing that, admittedly, sorry, it's going to sound really conceited me saying this way, or arrogant at least. Heaven forbid I say something conceited and arrogant. Oh no, the industry will go aflame. You're going to have to know how to make user interfaces. Kind of like, back in the day, user interface design was important for software. Well, now it is for websites as well. It's not about just making it pretty. And I know the good web designers, they already know this. They're like, yeah, Josh, we know. So it's so good. We're on the same page. But I really got to buckle down again and think, okay, what are the personas for this site? What are they going to want to do? Make it as few clicks as possible above the fold, super fast for them to do that. Like almost use the blink tag, almost use like a blink tag or some subtle kind of boom, boom, kind of, so they know where to click to get what they want. Because Nothing is more important than that. And quite frankly, if you do that better than everyone else, you are going to rank much, much better. Okay, so another thing that he said, by the way, for those of you out there who are using footer links as a tactic, if you're not already aware, that's pretty much done. John Mueller has specifically said that if you're saying designed by so-and-so or SEO'd by so-and-so or web server provided by so-and-so, that link has to be no-follow. They consider that a solicited link, and that link has to be no-follow, or they'll probably just ignore it, but it could bubble you up with your other links to get a manual review. And the dreaded manual penalty for sites, action versus, for links, action versus site, where the partial match penalty, I'll remind you again, you don't have to do a damn thing about. Just take it as a warning not to make links that way anymore. Do not go stuffing links into your disavow file. Look for past videos for that rant, including on Moz, the wonderful Moz, who promotes only the highest quality content. Now, yes, and John Mueller also in that hangout did mention that interstitial advertisements, pop-up ads are bad. But he also did admit something, and I just want to remind you guys that Googlebot can render the page, but Googlebot apparently doesn't scroll. Googlebot does not scroll. So let me tell you what that means. If you have any content that loads on scroll or any actions that load on scroll, so far, unless Google has changed this recently, Googlebot's not going to see it. So that's interesting. Just FYI, just for your information out there, if you have any events and any content, just for say, that loads on scroll in the on scroll event, Google's not going to see it because Googlebot doesn't scroll or doesn't move a cursor either. So if you move a cursor, you have something that loads on the on cursor move event, Googlebot isn't going to load that either. Just let that percolate. Just there. It's there just for you there. But also, that's a problem. For example, if you have infinite scroll type of page, you have to have rel next prev ranking cluster tags. So it's an anchor tag, next, 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 with named anchors. You have to do that so that Google knows what each part of the page is about, and Googlebot will load each part of the page. Otherwise, it doesn't scroll, and it's never going to load that extra step, depending on how you do your infinite scroll. You just have a really long page; they'll read that. But if you're doing infinite scroll through Ajax or any kind of JavaScript, they're not gonna. They might not process it, especially if the event is on scroll. So far, now SMX West. SMX West 2015 just recently happened on March 6th, and some very interesting stuff came out of that conference. Quite frankly, it was all centered around, most of it was just the normal prefab, back-padding, stupid, make-great content crap that you normally hear from these kinds of conferences. And I know I've been to many of them. However, it's always interesting when Google shows up and they make some offhand comment, and then the whole industry goes, blah, crazy. Gary Isles, who is a programmer from Zurich, works in the same office as John Mueller, went to the conference, and he mentioned that kind of an out-of-hand comment that that Panda is, and I quote, pretty much instant, end quote, or running pretty much instantly in real time after the pages are, I quote, reprocessed. So these tweets started coming out of SMX, and people started wondering what the heck that possibly means. It sounds like, and some people are like, it's not a big deal, it's just the way that Google has always worked. Google, of course, Panda is applied pretty much in real time, instantly after the algorithm processes, and then it launches. So of course it's more or less instant. So what do you mean, Gary Isles? But other people thought he meant that Panda was now running in real time. That instead of running every month and being like an adjustment every month, that now it pretty much runs daily. And if it sees signals it doesn't like, or maybe it runs every time it crawls. So if your site gets crawled every 3 days, Panda is checking with everything that checks on the crawl for low quality stuff. And what other signals are part of Panda, like user metrics, for example, which, again, there's still tons of evidence to suggest this is the case. If those user metric signals are processed daily, and there's both Google leaked and SEO experiment and Black Hat experiment evidence to suggest this is the case, that user metrics are being processed on a regular basis and can tank a site or can improve a site on, more or less a daily or every few day basis. So it could be on crawl, or it could be every few days from user metrics, or both. Both the things could be running, because I think Panda looks at both signals. So this is very fascinating. So, so I'll get back to that in a second. The other thing that came out from SMX West was that, of course, their mobile algorithm is running in real time at the page level. And this is another piece of evidence to suggest that Panda is running in real time or close to it, because they want this it's equally as important to them to rank desktop content now as it is to rank mobile content, because they see this percentage of mobile users just driving up dramatically. In fact, they predicted this year that mobile searches would exceed desktop searches in some cases. So I don't know if they've actually got that yet, if that's the way it's running, but that's what they predicted. So that's interesting coming out of SMX West. Then we have another hangout. Pierre Farr, who's not my favorite Googler, because usually he's pretty arrogant when it comes to, in my experience, I found he's fairly arrogant when it comes to people who have broken their rules, and he treats them like they're second-class citizens and like they're doing something morally wrong, which I, newsflash, have a problem with. So that aside entirely, he did have a hangout which was semi-interesting, where he was trying to help small business owners. Now, why would he go so far as to do that? This is the hangout where he was mentioning personas and microtasks and things like that. And he also is on a very similar team to Miley. He talks about task completion and has been for the last year and a half, if not 2 years. So this is on Google's mind. They don't talk about it just for the heck of it, right? This is on Google's mind. And what's on their mind they use to rank, right? So, and if they tell us to do something, it's because they want us to do it so they can use it for ranking. That is the only reason they tell us to do it. So they don't tell us for any other reason. So anyway, he mentioned you should measure everything. Again, you should be measuring micro conversions and macro conversions. Again, micro conversions are every little click, every little step. And again, I've said in the past, you've got to think more like an online internet marketer, where they try to reduce click bleed, where they try and remove all the clicks and all the steps it takes to get that sale, right? You need to do the same thing for all of your converting points, right? For all of your personas. The information person needs to get the fewest clicks to get the information and be wowed by the information. The information is the best information they ever read. So good, they decide to share it of their own volition or make links to it of their own volition, right? That's the idea. That's the ideal, if you can ever get to it. The buying person to buy, etc., etc. The person who wants your contact information to find your contact info, either on the first page they go to, that would be the best, maybe even the Google search, for crying out loud. They don't have to get to your site. Anyway, so he did that, and Zeneb, I don't know her last name, but she's another Google employee. I can't pronounce her last name, but she's another Google employee, and she mentioned a number of things, and I quote, avoid interstitials. You have to use autocomplete. And she said that these things are not a ranking factor, at least at this time. I repeat, she said, whenever they say to you, whenever they say, this is not a ranking factor, at least at this time, it's a ranking factor, okay? Or they're planning on using it very, very shortly. There is no other reason for them to talk about you doing it. They don't give a crap if you have a good website or anybody has a good user experience, except for on their site and the sites they recommend. So, I mean, so you can be pretty sure that if you want a list of things to do, what Google has told you to do is a pretty darn good guess. And so I think there's some evidence to suggest these things could be ranking factors as well. Okay, that Matt Cutts mentioned before he quit, right before he quit SMX Advanced last year, that, actually the year before, autocomplete is very important. You should be using autocomplete, blah, blah, blah. He asked people to raise their hand. How many people are using autocomplete? You said you should be doing that. Yeah, they could get moralistic, and yeah, they might say you should be doing it even though they're not using a ranking factor, but they're worried about micro-conversions, and that's part of the micro-conversion process. I'd do it. Okay, I mean, if you're looking for stuff to do, do it. All right, so here is another interesting one, March 10th, just 4 days ago. So John Mueller had a hangout at that time, and he mentioned, so now getting back to this Panda real-time thing, he mentioned they can render JavaScript 90% of the time, that Ajax is still being crawled. He claimed that the payday loans algorithm really was just for the payday loans sector. And he was saying it pretty point blank. He said, no. Payday loans are just for the payday loans sector. And so I asked him, oh, well, that's interesting because I have a number of sites that dropped on payday loans, confirmed, admitted dates from Google that that weren't in the payday loans niche. That had nothing to do with the payday loans niche. And I said, so is it possible that Google is running Penguin alongside payday loans or alongside other algorithms just in the background? And he said to me, that is entirely possible, quote unquote. He said very favorably that, yeah, that could very well be happening. Whenever he says that, that is as close to a yes as you're going to get, right? So he admitted that they're releasing Penguin without announcing it. He's already admitted they're releasing Penguin without announcing it. They could very well be running Penguin regularly without announcing it. And that they're not going to announce it, they don't want to announce it, and that's what the story he's been telling me ever since I've been asking him since November of last year. So that's the first interesting thing about Penguin. So it's being released, he's admitted it's being released, he's admitting they don't announce it, he's admitted that it drops in behind certain algorithms. That could be the very reason, which I've already admitted in numerous previous videos. That could be the very reason why payday loans seems to be so much like Penguin, because it is, right? Because they dropped Penguin at the same time, and so I was really tracking Penguin, and wow, Penguin looks like Penguin. That's because it's Penguin. So that's entirely possible. It was just Penguin the whole time we were seeing, which is a good thing. I was trying to fix it like Penguin, so that's why it got fixed whenever it got fixed. Now, so that's that's crazy admission 1 for Penguin. Now here's crazy admission 2 for Panda. Now the Panda one's a little bit more subtle, you gotta piece it together. Now, so John Mueller was asked about this Panda thing. Is it running real time or not? And John Mueller said, as far as I know, I don't know if it's running real time, but as far as I know, we do have Panda tied in, this is a direct quote, as far as I know, we do have Panda tied into our search results more directly. So there is this real-time reflection there. I repeat, he said, as far as I know, referring to what Gary Isles said, we do have Panda tied into our search results more directly, so there is real-time reflection there. But the algorithm, the data as he called it, and he was equivocating whether this meant the algorithm or the data that it uses, has not been updated since October 24th. That's what Barry said, and John Mueller couldn't confirm that. He said, I don't know, I'd have to check my email. So he wasn't really sure exactly when. And for all I know, he's not really sure, so for all I know, he's, who knows what's going on with it anyway. So that was interesting, but not, earth-shattering yet. But then an ex-Googler, this is public record, you can check it yourself, Pedro Diaz, said to Barry Schwartz, Panda changes with new algo data is not the same as real-time assessment of Panda signals already in the algo. I repeat, this is an ex-Google employee who still has ties from Google, who's admitted to me he still has ties from Google. And he's saying, to correct Barry who's saying Panda hasn't run since October 24th at all. I don't know what this real-time thing means, ignore it. That was what Barry Schwartz was saying. I repeat, Barry Schwartz was saying, Panda has not run since October. He interprets all that what was said by John Mueller and Gary Isles as to say, Panda has not run since October, and he hasn't noticed any major industry spikes. He hasn't noticed any major industry spikes, right? That's what Barry Schwartz watches. He watches 12 to 24 different webmaster forums for a whole bunch of people to come on there and whine and complain about SEO. And that's how he knows to contact Google and ask, did you guys just do something? And sometimes they tell him yes, and sometimes they tell him no. But think about it. If Panda's running real time, after it crawls your site, it's completely random now. It'll be homogeneous background noise like the background radiation of the universe. There will be no spikes. There will be no spikes of webmasters coming to a forum complaining, because Panda is running on each site intermittently. Whenever it crawls and whenever it processes your user metrics, and you will go up and down intermittently. And so there will be no spikes. That explains why Barry hasn't seen any spikes. That explains why Barry is, in my opinion, probably incorrect when he judges that Panda hasn't run since October 24th. In fact, what is happening with Pedro's statement, what is happening is October 24th was the new Panda 4.1 when they bothered to announce it. John Mueller said at that time, I don't think it's going to run monthly anymore. I don't think we're going to announce it anymore. And I thought, this is strange. That it's not going to run monthly because that's how it's been running for the last 2 years. All they did was they improved that process now. They've got that process streamlined down to the point where they can run it in real time now at this point, which was always their plan, of course. So this is what I think is happening with Panda. I think they upgraded with Panda 4.1, and that was in September. Then October, they refreshed it, Panda 4.2. They tweaked it. They got the algo just running the way we want. And now Panda runs real time, just like the PageRank algorithm runs real time, and the semantic latent index. And Hummingbird runs real time, processing the information, checking it for semantic relevance, checking it for quality. They sometimes call relevance quality, actually. They use those terms interchangeably. Because if it's low quality, then it's not relevant to the user, in their opinion. That's some interesting wordsmithing from Google. But that 3 years ago, that's what they used to say. That's what their wordsmithing was. Yes, I've been watching them that long. I've been watching them a long time. I've watched every single Hangout that's ever been since the beginning. And then conferences and beyond that, et cetera, et cetera. So I think Panda's running in real time now. I really do. I think that that algo was released, and as Pedro says, Panda changes with new algo data, October 24th, is not the same, and not running since, is not to say that it isn't real-time assessment of the Panda signals already in the loop. Then Barry responds on Twitter, yeah, but to a site hit by Panda, if there's no new data, it's all the same. And Pedro says, not really. A site might not need new data to get reassessed. Boom, there's the hint. Right? He's saying, Barry, October 24th, they updated the algo. It now processes the signals in real time. And so the signals get reassessed on a regular basis by that algorithm. So you don't need a big data refresh. You don't need a big algo refresh. The algo is already running. It's running in real time. So, and this is also confirmed by a number of other speculations, mostly coming from the Black Hat community, who are trying to do, dare I say it, not to give you any ideas, but they're doing user metric manipulation. There's a lot of different services out there that do it, some better than others. I'm not going to mention any of them because I don't trust any of them, quite frankly. So I'm not going to mention any of them so that you go buy them. I don't really think they're any good because I don't know what IP addresses they're using in the back end, and I don't know if they have a bot or a human being doing it, and whether they use an actual browser or not. And most people, as many people who sign up for the service, in fact more, probably 7 people out of 10 that I ask what do they think of it, they tank their sites. Sometimes other people's sites, right? That's another thing that tells me that this user metric portion of Panda is running on a regular basis. They're tracking, and it depends if it's a transactional query or a keyword query. They're tracking who is searching for what, who is clicking what on that search, and whether they go up or down, and if the search variance is well out of the norm, right? Well out of the norm. For example, let's say I have a site called, Red Apples would be a bad example. Let's say I have a site called joshsfruitemporium.com where I sell a product called Red Apples. I sell green apples, I sell bananas. It's a thing. So let's say I make a TV commercial for Josh's Fruit Emporium. Come on down to Josh's Fruit Emporium. Yeehaw, we got the fruit for you. You know, something like that. And let's say so people search Josh's Fruit Emporium like crazy, and my click-through rate for that goes skyrocketing, and my rankings go up for that. Lo and behold, right? Because brand searches are important. They have been for years. But if I did a commercial called Red Apples, buy Red Apples, and people searched buy, and 1,000, you know, usually it's 1,000 searches a day for buy Red Apple, and suddenly there's 10,000 searches that day, and heck, 90% of them click this one site. It's only a matter of time. You know, if we're going to spam something, it's only a matter of time before Google catches up, notices, and then writes an algorithm to demote. So then, of course, they also open the door for negative SEO in that regard. So for do queries, buying queries, it seems to be a negative SEO. It seems to not help you at all, by the way, in case you're planning on doing this. Watch your analytics for this as well. If you see a big click-through rate increase for that on your site, for your buying search queries, and suddenly your rankings drop, that could be what it is. How do you protect yourself against it? I don't know. Balance it out. I mean, I have no idea how you would protect yourself against that. For basically no way. If that's what Google is doing, I don't know for sure. Some people are swearing by it that I'm talking to, but if that's what Google is doing, well, thanks, Google. You know, once again, you've screwed us. Thanks very much. You know, they think that we're not figuring out what they're doing. You know, like, obviously people are figuring it out. And a lot of people are in the reads, and a lot of people haven't figured it out, but there's a core of people who figured it out. So, you know, so this is how I think this is working. I think Panda is running real time. So really, at this point, that changes the game entirely. I mean, for the last 3 years, we've been kind of this change state, and things are still going to change a little bit, but the algorithms they have now they want to rank on are kind of stable. They've balanced it across the board for these different kind of social signals, maybe clicks, maybe not, maybe the activity on your profile associated with you, maybe the semantic of the no-follow links on social or not, the mentions, the ratings, the reviews, If you want to get my complete list of what I think is ranking 2015, look at my 2015 SEO course back on my YouTube channel. It's got about 30,000 views now. Those are not bought. Those are just put it out and just completely viral views. I don't know. Some people like it. Go check it out anyway. On my YouTube channel, youtube.com/jbachynski, J-B-A-C-H-Y-N-S. I give a complete rundown, and I repeat it with graphs and charts and proof, and actual ranking data proof of what I think is ranking in 2015. And this video will be a small addendum to that I think Panda is now running on a real-time weekly basis, depending on how fast they're crawling your site. That would also correspond to what I'm seeing in my SEO audits that I do. I do hundreds of SEO audits a year, and because I look at statistics, I look at the data, so I can do it very quickly and accurately. Not making guesses from the hip on some blog post I read, but actually based on the data. Fancy that. I've seen this as well. I've seen Panda-like statistical variances, where it's like crawl, spike, same kind of quality problems I see on every site. Not good for my Panda list. I have a Panda list, by the way. Check out my SEO course. It'll show it to you. And not good user metrics, terrible user metrics. But always on a different date. And I go, okay, my last check to see if it's Panda is to check Barry's site to see if he said, there's been a shake-up this date, we don't know what it is. I go, okay, probably Panda. Because I see if it looks like a Panda and smells like a Panda, then it's a Panda, especially if everyone else is having it. But that's because I thought Google was still running it monthly. I couldn't figure it out because it was like, and Panda had a 10-day variance, so if Barry saw a shake-up on, say, February 4th, which he did, and this guy got dropped January 28th, and this guy got dropped, February 10th. I think, okay, that could still be Panda because it was rolling out for around 10 days every month. Remember, that's what Matt Cutts told us a couple of years ago. So that's how I explained it. But now Pedro's comments and Gary Isles' comments and John Mueller's comments and Barry's mistake. Sorry, Barry, I love you. You're a great guy. But I believe that particular view of yours was mistaken. Seriously, I like the guy. I know I'm always saying it's wrong. It's just a joke. I think that's how you explain all that. That's how all these pieces of evidence, that's how it makes the most sense that Panda is now running real time. So it means it changes a lot of stuff, as I was talking about. It means you can't look for a big shakeup in the industry. It means it's terrible because they could also be running Penguin. You don't know. And there's other algorithms that all rank or derank you at the same time. You don't know. Page layout algorithms, speed, bad merchant, Hummingbird. So there's so many, you don't know what it is. So you don't want to just go disavowing your links willy-nilly. So I hope you're starting to appreciate how this changes everything, because at the very least, in the Matt Cutts era of the SEO war, as hard as I've been on Matt Cutts, at the very least, he had the frickin' decency to tell us when a frickin' algorithm ran. If you forgive my fricks. Now, these pricks, quite frankly, are not even going to tell us when something's ran, so we can't even diagnose to that degree. There's no point in going back and looking at your traffic. You can, if you like, just for shits and giggles, but it's really not going to give you anything, because even if you see you fell on a day when everyone else fell, okay, maybe you can presume that's a Penguin update, maybe, but you want to go disavowing your links at that point? That's a terrible thing to do. By the way, all of my detractors and the people who are trying to assassinate my character failed. All they did was increase my business, quite frankly. I'm doing more business now than I have ever. But much more importantly, I know Google was looking around trying to find out what my Penguin hack is, but they haven't, because it's still working. I have the proof just from a few days to show you if you want to see it. So if you do go down on a Penguin date, you could check your traffic to see if a lot of people went down that date and presume it's Penguin, but it could very well be something else that they're not announcing, or you don't know what it is. I could be wrong about Panda. It could still be Panda, right? So the reason why it was always safe for me to assume it's Panda with that evidence, which is pretty good evidence, like a bunch of people were hit, it looks like Panda, other people say it looks like Panda to them, it seems to be a quality issue, let's assume it's Panda. And because the cure for that is to only make your site better. So if you're only making your site better, you're going to benefit from that down the road anyway. If you're getting 10 visitors and only 5 are buying, if I can make your site better, you get 8 sales instead of 5. I did that immediately for you, right? So, I mean, it helps you now, and I do believe for SEO, and my experience proves that it's going to help you rank in the future. It's kind of funny when I tell people their site's ugly and they got to change it. They get pissed off at me and go away. Quite often, clients come back to me, 6 months later and say, we made your changes. I hate to admit it, my rankings did get better. What services do you offer now? Do you want to do some social for that kind of a thing? So anyway, that does happen. So SEO, in my opinion, basically has completely changed. It's the end of an era. It really is an end of an era. Going back and looking at your traffic really isn't going to help you very much. You don't want to disavow your links anyway. Just on a hunch, you might have Penguin. At best, you're wasting your time, and at worst, you're going to hurt yourself. If the disavow file actually is trusted by Google, at worst, you're going to hurt yourself. I'm going to grill Google more on what they're using the disavow file for and how much it'll help you, but quite frankly, all the information I have from ex-Googlers and current Googlers is that it will not help you. You have to delete your links. Matt Cutts told me that to my face. To my face. I know people make fun of me when I say point blank, but point frickin' blank, he said it to my face. We don't want people just to disavow. We don't want the black hats to just disavow and be able to get out of it. So, you might want to look at changing your domain name. You might want to look at any sneaky little things. You want to email me and talk to me about it. I can. I'm being much more selective about who I release this to, by the way, of course. And it's getting much more tricky how to do it. But it hurts nothing to try. You try it first and then see how it goes. So anyway, I got alerts coming up and stuff. Okay, so there we go. So yeah, I no, this is a bit of a longer rant, guys, but I think SEO has changed entirely, and it's almost to the point where, on the one hand, it's terrible because you can't diagnose what's going on. But the other hand, it actually makes it kind of easy. Just I'm going to puke about what I'm about to say, but I mean, really, it is about making your site better, and really, it is about but doing it in a structured, not a pukey, just make your site better and unicorns will fart out rainbows and it'll be wonderful. Not that, but determining your personas, determining your micro conversions, determining your macro conversions, make that as streamlined, as efficient, beyond as streamlined and efficient as you think you possibly can. Hiring designers who know how to make user interfaces. It doesn't matter how pretty it is. Ask them how many user interfaces have you designed, and do you know the basic principles of user interface design? And they'll be like, yeah, like they might get a little insulted. Some will be like, of course, and here's my, see, I can show you the principles. See how I designed this and see how this is here and see how this is the bottom right here. Are your readers left to right readers? Are your readers right to left readers? That's the basic question. Are we designing for the West, for any Latin or English or German variant? Or are we designing for Arabic or Hebrew? Because they're right to left readers. So their user interface is going to be completely different. Those kind of basic questions they should be asking. And SEO has really changed. So, I'm still watching. This is just a hypothesis on my regard, but it's pretty compelling, and there's quite a lot of evidence to suggest that this is the way it's gone and this is the way it's going to be for the future. So with that, I'll leave you, my friends. If you have any SEO questions at all, please do not hesitate to watch my videos at youtube.com/jbachynsk, JBACHYNS, or if you have any SEO questions or concerns at all, email me at any time at joshbachynski@gmail.com. That's joshbachynski@gmail.com, and I would love to help you out. And I wish you the very best. I wish you good luck. And it's very interesting. It's a new era, and so it's there for the taking. So good luck in the SERPs, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.